Jung said, we have to expect a factor in the psyche that is not subject to the laws of time and space, as it is on the contrary capable of suppressing them to a certain extent. In other words, this factor is expected to manifest the qualities of timelessness and spacelessness, i.e., eternity and ubiquity. Psychological experience knows of such a factor. It is what I call the archetype, which is ubiquitous in space and time. In ontological mathematics, there are entities outside space and time, eternal, necessary, immaterial, and ubiquitous, which are the sources of space, time, matter and particularity. These things are sinusoidal waves, which is to say basis thoughts. They are the ontological ground of everything and they explain everything. They are the unique answer to existence. They are the true archetypes, from which everything else is built. Jung wrote, the archetype is a structural element of the psyche we find everywhere and at all times, and it is that in which all individual psyches are identical with each other, and where they function as if they were the one undivided psyche the ancients called anima mundi or the psyche tu cosmo, world soul. Creatures under archetypal control are more or less identical, as we see in the animal world, where no member of any species ever deviates far from the average behavior of the species. Except of course in the case of the human race. Humans display an immensely wide range of behaviors, a multitude of which are culturally rather than biologically inspired. Culture frees humanity from archetypes and brings human beings under the control of ever-changing ideas. Humanity has divided into 16 different Myers-Briggs psychological species. The same thing would happen to animals if they became conscious. Thinking rats would be very different from sensing rats. An archetypal, biological, species cannot change. It stays the same generation after generation. A cultural species such as humanity can undergo radical changes from one generation to the next. Biology changes very slowly. Culture can change at a dizzying speed. Jung said, there is no outside to the collective psyche. In our ordinary mind we are in the worlds of time and space and within the separate individual psyche. In the state of the archetype we are in the collective psyche, in a world system whose space-time categories are relatively or absolutely abolished. Jung imagined a space-time world of the individual psyche being held within a collective psyche outside space-time. In fact, the space-time world is a holographic construct projected within the collective psyche, and individual psyches linked to bodies within the collective space-time world. Each mind can also individually create its own version of the space-time world, via private dreaming. Jung believed in an underlying world of neutral monism. Wikipedia says, neutral monism is an umbrella term for a class of metaphysical theories in the philosophy of mind. These theories reject the dichotomy of mind and matter, believing the fundamental nature of reality to be neither mental nor physical, in other words, it is neutral. Jung wrote, in The Unus Mundus, One World, there is no incommensurability between so-called matter and so-called psyche. Here one gets into deep waters, at least I myself must confess that I am far from having sounded these abysmal depths. Jung, a highly intuitive individual, saw that numbers were somehow important in all of this. He said, in this connection I always come upon the enigma of the natural number. I have a distinct feeling that number is a key to the mystery, since it is just as much discovered as it is invented. It is quantity as well as meaning. Number is not invented at all. It is entirely discovered. It is the ground of all. It is both quantitative, syntactic, and qualitative, semantic, i.e., every number has both a form and a content, the content providing its experienced meaning. Schools and universities teach mathematics as if it were pure abstraction, form divorced from content, syntax divorced from semantics, thing devoid of meaning. They therefore conclude that it is unreal and man-made, just something humans thought up. By contrast, schools and universities teach that matter is real, matter is the thing we discover out there. This raises the most astounding intellectual contradiction. Science converts reality into a dualism of unreal form and real content. Science says that content is matter, something observable by the senses, and is real, while form is mathematics, an unreal man-made abstraction, and is unreal. Or we might charitably say that science believes that matter has its own form, but we can never know what it is, yet we can artificially replicate it, with mind-boggling accuracy, using mathematics, something allegedly just made up, really just in the last few hundred years. No scientist has ever ventured to explain how unreality can possibly mimic reality to any degree of accuracy. The way out of the conundrum is simplicity itself. All you have to do is accept that reality is mathematical, and that's exactly why mathematics is the means we use to make sense of it. But science says that reality is material, and mathematics has nothing to do with reality, an incoherent position given the importance of mathematics to scientific materialism. Scientific ideology keeps getting in the way of scientific logic. Eugene Wigner, a Nobel laureate in physics, famously wrote a paper entitled The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Mathematics in the Natural Sciences. It's astounding that every scientist on Earth is not asked to comment on this paper and explain why science uses mathematics at all. Given how different mathematics is from science, scientists regard matter as concrete and mathematics as abstract, with no connection to matter. In these terms, it should not be a case of talking about the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics in the sciences, it should be a case of talking about the impossibility of mathematics being effective in the sciences. If mathematics is unreal, then it can have no possible role to serve in describing reality. That's basic logic, yet it seems not to trouble any scientist. Logic categorically states that mathematics can describe reality only if reality is mathematical. 1 + 1 = 2. Mathematics is not man-made abstraction. Mathematics is ontological, concrete, real. It has both a form and a content, a rational aspect and an empirical aspect, a quantitative aspect and a qualitative aspect, a syntactic aspect and a semantic aspect. Matter isn't separate from mathematics. It is mathematics. Therefore, scientific materialism is actually all about mathematics. If you do not accept the ontology of mathematics, it's impossible to explain why science uses mathematics and how mathematics can be in any way relevant to science. Eugene Wigner wrote, "It is important to point out that the mathematical formulation of the physicist's often crude experience leads in an uncanny number of cases to an amazingly accurate description of a large class of phenomena." Why is a Nobel laureate talking about uncanny things? Is gravity or electromagnetism regarded as uncanny? Is science itself uncanny? It might as well be if it has to rely on something, mathematics, which it regards as uncanny. Wigner wrote, "The miracle of the appropriateness of the language of mathematics for the formulation of the laws of physics is a wonderful gift which we neither understand nor deserve." A miracle? A gift? Hardly the language one would expect from a Nobel laureate in physics. That's what you expect from a religious preacher. Wigner said, "We should be grateful for it and hope that it will remain valid in future research and that it will extend, for better or for worse, to our pleasure, even though perhaps also to our bafflement, to wide branches of learning." It's so sad that a Nobel laureate was so brainwashed by scientism that he literally couldn't conceive of mathematical reality, even if this would instantly explain why mathematics is so successful in the sciences. It's easy to understand why physicists cannot unify general relativity and quantum physics despite the most intensive effort in scientific history, involving the most highly trained and qualified scientists in human history, with more scientific knowledge than at any time in history. They lack the means to break out from their failed thinking of the past. They cannot entertain radical new possibilities. They stop themselves from contemplating things such as the ontology of mathematics that would solve their problems in a stroke. Wigner wrote, "It is difficult to avoid the impression that a miracle confronts us here, quite comparable in its striking nature to the miracle that the human mind can string 1,000 arguments together without getting itself into contradictions, or to the two miracles of laws of nature and of the human mind's capacity to divine them." Wigner was clearly no philosopher. It's astonishing how easy it is to explain how the mind understands the world so well. The world is the mind's construct. Yet the materialism of science makes this an impossible thought for physicists to have, and instead they have to gibber on about miracles and gifts. The next word that would have come out of Wigner's mouth was presumably God, yet that's the most banned idea of all in science. Wigner said, "Fundamentally, we do not know why our theories work so well. Hence, their accuracy may not prove their truth and consistency. Science will never work out why its theories work. In fact, they work because of mathematics and not because of sensory experiments and the man-made concept of matter. Science didn't achieve anything before it adopted mathematics, and the reason for that is self-evident. Mathematics is the real part of science, so science without mathematics is nothing but a man-made, unreal abstraction, exactly what science accuses mathematics of being. Science relies on accuracy. Science literally claims that its theories must be correct and real because they are so accurate. But, exactly as Wigner pointed out, accuracy neither proves that something is true nor that it is consistent and complete. Einstein said, "The most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible. The most incomprehensible thing about the universe is why anyone would imagine that it would not be comprehensible." It reveals so much about Einstein and how he thought about reality that he believed that incomprehensibility rather than comprehensibility should be the default. Einstein wasn't a rationalist. He was a mystic. He said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited to all we now know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world, and all there ever will be to know and understand." This is the sort of thing any New Age guru would say, not a Nobel laureate in physics. For those at the back, this is a universe that is reducible to the principle of sufficient reason and its corollary Occam's razor. It's a mathematical universe. It's totally rational, logical and simple. It's entirely knowable. It's not mysterious, miraculous, irrational, magical, illogical, unknowable, and unfathomable. It's literally designed to be knowable. Its entire teleology is to become known to itself. Why wouldn't it be like that? What's the point of a pointless universe?